Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers, and this morning I'm looking at a book from Edward Elgar Publishing Limited. They're a family independent publishers of national and international renowned, and much of the work that they do is very scholastic in its nature. However, we welcome it within the legal profession and as economists because of the contribution it makes to the general debates. Now, what I'm looking at today is this book here. It's not a very big one. It runs to about just under 400 pages. It's called Enforcement of Transnational Regulation. A bit of a mouthful, that. There's the side. There's some comments on the back. It's part of the private regulations series, which is mentioned at the bottom there, by Edward Elgar, and it's got a subtitle, Ensuring Compliance in a Global World, and it's been edited by Fabrizio Cafaggi. Now, I think this is a very interesting book, as someone who's been very cynical about the way in which regulation has seemed to have taken over our lives, both within the EU and much more internationally, to try to regulate things. It's always seen as a control device. That's really why the first port of call is the middle of the book, which is that pyramid, which is well worth looking at, because the pyramid is actually an example of what is called the enforcement pyramid. You've got a classic of license revocation, criminal penalty, civil penalty, or an injunction, warnings, and then right at the bottom, education and advice. So right at the top you've got the ultimate sanction, if you like. Now this applies to me in my profession and to everybody else. So this book is very important because the question they're raising is enforcement or compliance. And really it is, with great respect to all concerned, about control. And that's one of the difficulties, because we are looking at it now from a global perspective, and this book is very welcome because of that. The book itself is very much a standard publication. There is a certain element of paragraph numbering at the sides. You've got a lot of footnotes again, a lot of detail, but again for regulatory purposes it's very helpful. You've also got a reasonably good index at the back there, and you can see right at the front there are some useful points. There are a lot of contributors again. It's very much part of the stable of the Edward Elgar Publications, and the content of the book and the wider project is covered right at the beginning, and I'll just quote a bit, because it says this book focuses on the enforcement of transnational regulation. It's part of a broader research project concerning different aspects of transnational private regulation, and there's in fact an EU website that they refer to, and what they're talking about is transnational private regulation is a new research project that wants to open up a new field focusing upon regulatory regimes that are not exclusively state-based but include private actors. Now that's an interesting area because of the balance between the public role and the private role within the state. Now I'm a barrister, therefore I have a public-facing role with what I do because I go to court, and obviously I'm also very, very heavily regulated. Can I just say there's a lot of reference material here which I think will be extremely helpful for anybody who's certainly studying postgraduate studies of one sort and another. It's also, I think, quite useful for people doing something like the PGCE, which I did, where you've got to look very closely today at your continuous professional development and, in fact, the way in which the professions that we're all members of are going. I welcome this book because enforcement represents a key dimension in measuring the effectiveness and legitimacy of transnational private regulation. So Professor Cafaggi is very, very much to be congratulated, and the staff at Edward Elgar, for a great new addition to what is a continuing debate, and one which I'm sure will be around with us for a very long time. Thank you to all concerned. Bye-bye.